The arrival of the Devourer. The sky over Earth changed without warning. One quiet evening, the stars began to vanish, one by one, as if someone was turning them off. People around the world looked up, confused and afraid. Something huge was moving across the sky. It wasn't a spaceship. It wasn't an asteroid. It was alive. They called it the Devourer. No one knew where it came from. All they knew was that wherever it went, everything disappeared. Entire planets gone. No survivors. No escape. The Devourer didn't speak, didn't stop, didn't show mercy. It ate everything. Cities, machines, forests, oceans, until nothing was left. Now, it had reached Earth. The United Nations called emergency meetings. Military bases around the world prepared to launch missiles. But deep inside, everyone knew it wouldn't be enough. In a small town in Nevada, a man named James Carter stood outside his workshop. He was a quiet man, with oil-stained hands and tired eyes. He was just a mechanic. His town had already been evacuated, but James didn't leave. He had no reason to. His wife and daughter were gone, taken in the first wave when the Devourer consumed the East Coast in minutes. Now he stood alone, watching the sky burn. He lit a cigarette with shaking hands. "If it's going to end, let it end," he muttered. Above, the Devourer descended. It was not like anything humans had seen. It didn't have a body like animals. It was a massive cloud of dark matter, moving like smoke but glowing from inside with blue fire. In its center, a single giant eye burned like a sun. Sirens wailed in the distance. The military had arrived. Tanks rolled down the highway. Helicopters circled in the air. Fighter jets launched missiles at the creature. The explosions lit up the sky. The Devourer didn't even blink. It passed through the fire like it was walking through rain. Nothing touched it. The missiles vanished into its body, as if they never existed. James watched it all quietly. And then the creature turned. It saw him. Among all the soldiers, machines, and weapons, its eye focused on one small human, standing alone. It moved. The ground shook as it approached. Buildings cracked. Cars flew into the air. Soldiers ran, shouted, fired their weapons, but the creature ignored them all. It moved straight toward James. James didn't move. He didn't run. He didn't hide. He just stood there, cigarette in hand, staring at the massive thing coming for him. His heart beat fast, but he didn't feel fear. He felt calm. Maybe this was what he wanted. Maybe this was how it should end. And then something strange happened. The Devourer stopped. Just meters away from James, the creature paused. Its giant eye narrowed. Its dark mass hovered over him like a storm cloud. But it didn't strike. It didn't eat him. It just stared. James blinked. "Well," he said out loud, "what are you waiting for?" The creature made a deep humming sound, like thunder trapped in a cave. Its eye glowed brighter. The wind around James picked up. Dust and small rocks lifted off the ground. Still, it didn't attack. Soldiers watched in shock from a distance. They didn't understand. Why had the creature stopped? Why was it staring at this one man? James didn't know either, but deep inside, he felt something. A strange warmth. A voice, not with words, but with feelings, pressed into his mind. It wasn't loud. It was sad. Lonely. His lips parted. "You're not just here to destroy, are you?" The creature shifted. The humming got louder. The wind grew stronger, but it didn't move closer. It didn't kill. James took one step forward, and the unthinkable happened. The Devourer took one step back. Everyone watching, from generals to scientists, stared at their screens in shock. The unstoppable alien, the eater of worlds, was reacting to a human. James stood still again. The silence between them was heavy, but not empty. It was the beginning of something. Far above, satellites captured the moment. News channels around the world played the image of James and the alien again and again. People gasped. Children pointed. Elders prayed. One question echoed through everyone's mind. Why did it stop for him? And James, standing in the shadow of the beast, didn't know the answer. But he was ready to find out. The unspoken connection. James didn't move. The devourer still stood in front of him, its glowing eye locked on his face. The creature's massive, shifting body made no sound now. The wind had stopped. The air felt heavy, like the world was holding its breath. Soldiers and scientists watching from miles away didn't understand. Why hadn't the alien destroyed him? Why had it stopped? James felt something deep inside. A strange pull. He could feel the creature's presence in his chest. Not painful, not frightening, but strong, like gravity. He didn't hear a voice. Not really. But images started flashing in his mind. Quick, broken, like pieces of someone else's memories. He saw stars being born. He saw planets burning. He saw silence. Endless silence. The images stopped. James blinked hard and took a slow breath. "What are you?" he whispered. The devourer shifted, and a deep humming began again. It wasn't just a sound. It vibrated through the ground, through the air, and through his bones. He felt like it was trying to speak, but not with words. James held his chest. "You're trying to show me something," he said slowly, "but I don't understand." Suddenly, more images crashed into his mind, this time faster, more violent. Explosions, screams, an alien race, tall and cold, building something in the dark of space. A machine, alive but bound. That machine was the devourer. They didn't create it to feel. They created it to feed. Its hunger wasn't a choice. It was a command. It had no freedom. Until now. James staggered back, overwhelmed by the vision. He fell to his knees, panting, trying to catch his breath. His head throbbed. The devourer didn't move. It just watched. James looked up at the giant eye again. His voice was weak. "They made you do this, didn't they?" The eye flickered slightly, just once. Was it a nod? James stood slowly. "You're not just a monster. You're trapped." Back at the command center, military leaders argued loudly. Some wanted to launch nukes. Others demanded they wait. "It hasn't attacked in 10 minutes, someone shouted. "We need to understand what's happening before we do something we can't take back." But the pressure was rising. The world was watching. Billions of people were glued to screens, whispering prayers or curses, staring at the image of one man and one alien, locked in silence. Meanwhile, James took a brave step forward. The devourer didn't back away this time. It stood still. James placed a hand on his own chest. "You feel things now, don't you?" he said. "You're more than just hunger." The wind picked up again, but gently this time, like a soft breath. More visions appeared. The lonely journey across galaxies. Empty space, lifeless worlds, the same hunger over and over. But then, something changed. James saw his own planet through the alien's eyes. Earth. The colors. The life. The noise. The people. It was all different. It was beautiful. And in that moment, James understood something. Earth was the first place the devourer had felt anything. Tears welled up in James's eyes. Not from fear. From heartbreak. This thing wasn't a soulless beast. It was like a prisoner begging to be seen. "You stopped," James whispered, "because for the first time, you didn't want to destroy." The devourer's eye dimmed slightly. It wasn't weaker. It was calm. But far away, something else was happening. In space, another object was approaching. A ship, massive, silent, not human. It wasn't here to help. It was the builders, the ones who created the devourer. And they were coming to reclaim their weapon. Back on Earth, James felt something shift in the alien's mood. It started to hum again, but this time, It was scared. James narrowed his eyes. They're coming, aren't they? The alien's glow pulsed quickly. Yes. James clenched his fists. You don't want to go back to them. The devourer slowly lowered a tendril toward him, huge but gentle, like a tree branch swaying in the wind. James didn't run. He reached out and touched it. And in that single moment, something incredible happened. James felt everything. He wasn't seeing memories now. He was inside them. He stood in space, alone for centuries. He felt the ache of never sleeping, never resting, never being. Then the warmth of a sunrise on Earth, the laughter of children, the sound of birds. For the first time in its life, the devourer had felt peace, and it didn't want to lose it. The connection ended. James staggered back, breathless. He looked up at the alien again. Then we fight them, he said softly. Behind him, the soldiers stared in confusion. In front of him, the devourer pulsed with new light. And above them both, the creators of death were almost here. The dream of a dying star. High above Earth, in the deep silence of space, the creators of the devourer arrived. Their ship was massive, black as night, shaped like a long blade floating through the stars. It made no sound. It gave no warning. But its message was clear. They had come to take back what was theirs. On Earth, James stood in the shadow of the devourer, breathing heavily. He felt a change in the creature's energy. It trembled, not from fear, but from something deeper. A memory. A nightmare. The devourer tilted its glowing eye toward the sky. It knew who was coming. It had always known. James looked up, then back at the creature. They're your makers, aren't they? The humming began again. Soft at first, then louder, like a song from a broken machine trying to cry. The air vibrated. The ground cracked slightly under James's feet. James slowly reached out and placed his hand on the creature's black surface. "Show me," he whispered. And it did. In one breathless moment, James was pulled deep into the devourer's mind. It was not like before. This was not just a memory. It was a dream. A living dream. A dying star floated in darkness, cold and silent. Around it, machines worked without rest. The creators were tall, pale beings with eyes like frozen glass. They had no warmth, no hearts, no emotions. They had built the devourer inside that star, using its energy, feeding it with nuclear fire and dark matter, turning it into a weapon that could not die. James saw the devourer's birth. Painful. Lonely. It was not born with a voice. It was born with a hunger. And that was all it had ever known. Until Earth. Until him. James gasped and fell backward, out of the vision. He landed on the ground, coughing, dizzy. The sky above was turning dark, not from clouds, but from the shadow of the approaching creator ship. The devourer let out a low, broken sound. It was not a roar. It was grief. "You don't want to go back," James said softly. "You don't want to be their weapon anymore." The devourer's eye flared brighter for a moment, like a heartbeat. Then it dimmed again. James stood. He faced the creature directly. "You're not just a tool," he said. "You're not just a monster. You've seen beauty now. You've felt life. That means you can choose." He pointed at the sky. "But they won't let you. They'll take your choice away." The devourer began to shift. Its body formed sharp spikes and hard armor, as if it remembered what it was made for. But it hesitated. James felt his chest tighten. "You don't have to fight them alone," he said. The alien tilted slightly, confused. James took a shaky breath. "I don't know how, and I don't have powers. But if you protect life now, if you fight for something more than hunger, then I'll stand with you. I'll speak for you. I'll believe in you." For a moment, neither moved. Then slowly, the devourer extended a piece of its mass toward James. Not a weapon, not a threat. A bridge. James stepped forward and touched it. In that instant, he saw flashes of every world the Devourer had destroyed, all of them empty, all of them dead. But none of them had what Earth had: emotion, resistance, music, laughter, anger, love. Earth had changed it, and the creators hated that. Suddenly, alarms blared from the command center miles away. The alien ship had reached low orbit. Lights blinked red. Communications broke down. Satellites vanished. General Hawkins stared at the live feed. "The creature's moving again," he said. Toward the sky, one soldier whispered, "Is it running?" "No," Hawkins said slowly. "It's going to fight." In the sky, the Devourer rose above the city. Its body glowed with blue fire, but it no longer looked like a storm. It looked like something new, like a shield. The creator ship opened slowly, revealing a cold metal chamber inside. 4 long machines detached from it, floating down toward Earth. They were sent to retrieve the Devourer, or destroy it if it refused. James watched from the ground, hands clenched. This was not a battle between armies. This was a battle between what you're made for and what you choose to become. The Devourer launched upward. The air split with thunder. The sky turned electric. It met the first machine with a force so strong it shattered the clouds. But it didn't kill. It pushed the machine back, disabled it. The second one fired a black beam. The Devourer screamed, a sound that cracked glass for miles. But it didn't stop. It absorbed the energy, then returned it with pure heat. From the ground, people saw something they never expected. The monster was protecting them. James smiled weakly. "You're choosing life." The Devourer continued to fight, and James knew this was only the beginning. The creators wouldn't stop. They would bring more. They would come themselves. But now the Earth had a new protector. And a broken weapon was learning how to dream. Humanity's last stand. All across Earth, people watched the sky burn. It was not fire. It was light, blue and gold and black, twisting and flashing high above the clouds. The Devourer, once feared by every living race, now battled its creators in defense of a world it had nearly destroyed. James Carter stood in the ruins of his town, his eyes fixed on the heavens. Around him, soldiers stared, silent, uncertain. No one could explain what they were seeing. No one knew if they should be afraid or in awe. General Hawkins, miles away at the Global Command Bunker, spoke into a trembling microphone. "Get me a secure link to every world leader. Now." This changes everything. Above, the Devourer clashed with the third machine from the creator ship. Its blue fire clashed with black beams of dark energy. The explosion lit up half the sky. One of Earth's old satellites shattered instantly. The machine fell, disabled. But the Devourer was slowing. It had never fought like this before. It was built to destroy, not to protect. Fighting without feeding drained it quickly. Back on the ground, James felt something cold touch his mind. A new kind of pressure. A voice, not like the Devourer's feelings and images. This one was sharp, cold, and full of control. "Return." James staggered back. His hands went to his head. "The bond is broken. You belong to us. This planet is dust waiting to happen." James shook his head. No. But the voice was inside now. Not just in him, in the soldiers, the generals, the people watching from far away. The creators were using something worse than weapons now. Fear. They spread it like a disease. Voices whispered doubt in every human ear. "You are weak. You are soft. You will fall." James gritted his teeth. "Stop it." The Devourer, still high above, screamed, not from pain, but from rage. It dove toward the fourth machine. But this one was faster, smarter. It dodged the attack and fired a direct shot into the Devourer's side. The creature shuddered. A large chunk of its mass tore off and fell like black rain into the ocean below. In the bunker, arguments broke out. "This alien is still dangerous. We don't know what it really wants. It's fighting the ones who sent it. Can't you see that? Hawkins raised his hand. Enough. He turned to his communication officer. Put me through to James Carter. A moment later, a cracked radio buzzed in James's hand. Carter, this is General Hawkins. James raised it to his ear. I'm here. You're the only one it listens to. If you can, talk to it. Find out what it needs. If it can stop them, we'll help. If not, James cut him off. Don't finish that sentence, General. He looked up at the sky. The Devourer was falling now, slowly, like a wounded animal trying to stay upright. The fourth machine hovered above, preparing a final strike. James didn't hesitate. He ran, not away, but toward the center of the town, where the last piece of the Devourer had touched down like a living shadow. It was weak, barely moving. James reached it and knelt beside it. Hey, listen to me. You have to keep fighting. Don't give up. The black surface pulsed faintly under his hand. It was still alive. James pressed harder. You don't belong to them anymore. You made a choice. You chose us. And now, we choose you. He turned on the radio. General, tell your men not to fire on the creature. We need to give it energy, not bullets. Energy? Hawkins asked. How? James looked around. You said it feeds on matter, right? On energy. He stood on top of a broken car and shouted at the small group of people gathering nearby. We need every battery, every generator, every car. Bring me anything that can power a machine. People hesitated. Then someone ran. Then another. Within minutes, batteries, engines, solar panels, and even cell phones were being placed in front of the Devourer's broken form. James didn't know if it would work, but he knew one thing. This was humanity's last stand. They were not fighting with guns or ships. They were fighting with hope. He placed his own hand over the small generator from his truck and pushed it toward the alien mass. Here, take it. Take all of it. The Devourer stirred. Its surface rippled like water touched by the wind. It reached out, not in hunger, but in trust, and absorbed the power. And then it rose. Not all the way, but enough. Enough to fly. Enough to fight one last time. The sky darkened again as the Creator ship prepared to send more machines. But this time, Earth was not afraid. Because now, they were fighting together. James watched the Devourer launch into the air, trailing glowing light behind it. Go, he whispered. Go show them who you've become. The bond between hunter and prey. The Devourer flew into the sky once more, bruised, broken, but burning with a new kind of fire. It was no longer just a beast. It had been something else once, a machine created only to feed, to destroy, to obey. But something had changed. Earth had changed it. And one small human had touched the part of it that had never been allowed to feel. Now, it wasn't just fighting to survive. It was fighting to protect. Below, James watched the alien disappear into the clouds, glowing like a blue comet. He felt something strange in his chest. Not pain, not fear, pride. Beside him, people stood in silence. Some held tools. Others still carried power cells and broken machines, but none of them moved. They were watching, hoping. A soldier stepped forward. He's really going to fight them, isn't he? James nodded. He's not their weapon anymore. High above, the final machine from the Creator ship twisted toward the Devourer. This one was different, larger, faster. Its body moved like liquid metal, and its weapons were alive, shooting tendrils of energy that changed shape midair. The Devourer didn't hesitate. It struck first, slamming into the machine with a force that shattered the sound barrier. But the enemy didn't fall. It countered with a scream of light and force that cut through the Devourer's body. The creature reeled back, struggling to hold its form. The machine spoke, not in words, but in code, a command from the Creators. Return. The devourer growled, a deep, vibrating pulse that shook the sky. No, it had never spoken before. Not to them. Not to anyone. Now it had a voice. Back on the ground, James felt it. The moment the devourer rejected its masters. The connection between hunter and prey had changed. It was no longer a chain. It was a bond. The devourer didn't kill the machine. Instead, it disabled it, breaking its energy core and throwing it into orbit where it drifted, silent and powerless. Then the creator ship itself opened. For the first time, the creators stepped forward. They did not wear armor. They did not bring weapons. They were the weapons. Tall, silent beings of bone-white skin and crystal veins. Their faces showed nothing. No anger, no emotion, no soul. They floated toward Earth without fear, passing the clouds like ghosts. And the devourer froze. It remembered them. The pain, the commands, the long, endless silence in the cold between stars. It remembered being built, not with love, but with purpose. James saw the creature pause, hovering just above the atmosphere. "No," he whispered. "Don't stop now." He reached out with his thoughts, desperate to reach the devourer. "You are more than they made you. You've grown beyond them. You saved us. Don't forget that." The devourer twitched in the sky. The creator spoke. "You were built to consume. That is your purpose. We gave you everything. Now return to nothing." The creature trembled. A long, painful silence filled the air. Then a sound like breaking glass echoed across the sky. The devourer wept. Not with water, not with noise, but with energy, bright waves of light that rippled through the air. It turned away from its creators, and for the first time in its long, endless life, it ran. The creators followed. The chase lit the sky like a second sunrise. But this was not fear. This was something else. A decision. Back on Earth, James was taken to a hidden underground lab. The military wanted answers. Scientists wanted data. They had footage, readings, energy signatures, but none of it explained what was happening. "He's not controlling it," James said again and again. "It's not a pet. It's not a bomb. It's alive." A young scientist named Nora leaned in. "Then why didn't it destroy us when it had the chance?" James looked at her. "Because someone believed in it, even when it didn't believe in itself." She frowned. "You?" He shook his head. "No, us." The next day, everything changed. The creators stopped chasing. They hovered above Earth like judges in the sky. And they made an announcement, spoken directly into the minds of every human being. "Surrender the creature, or we will unmake this planet." Panic spread across the world. Leaders called emergency meetings. Some wanted to fight. Others said it wasn't worth it. The creature had almost ended humanity once. Why should they protect it now? James stood before the United World Council. He didn't have a speech. He had only one sentence. "If we give them the creature, we lose something greater than our lives. We lose our humanity." The room fell silent. For the first time, Earth stood not as countries, but as one voice. They chose to defend the devourer. And the devourer felt it. The bond between hunter and prey had become something far greater. Something no creator could ever program. Loyalty, trust, love, the voice of the forgotten. The skies above Earth grew darker than night. The creators had made their final warning clear. Surrender the devourer, or be erased. Across every screen, in every language, the same message echoed like thunder inside people's minds. It wasn't spoken with emotion. It wasn't a demand. It was a promise. The devourer floated above Earth's atmosphere, motionless, watching. Its form, once shifting like smoke, was now still, silent. Its eye, once glowing with blue light, had dimmed. It was afraid. Not for itself, but for them. Below, James Carter sat inside a high-security lab surrounded by armed guards and nervous scientists. A woman named Dr. Nora had been trying to communicate with the Devourer using light signals, sounds, even emotional pulses. Nothing worked. "It's pulling away," she whispered. "Something's changed." James stood and stepped closer to the large reinforced window facing the sky. "They said they'd unmake us," he muttered. "But that's not what scares it. It's what they said before." Nora frowned. "What do you mean?" James turned slowly. "They said, return the creature. Not destroy it. Not punish it. Return it. They think they still own it." Nora's eyes widened. "Because they made it." "No," James said, "because maybe something else is inside it, something they lost." She blinked. "Like what?" James stared into the sky. A voice. Far above Earth, just outside the planet's atmosphere, the Devourer hovered alone. It felt torn in two. Its creators, the ones who had built its body, written its code, controlled its instincts, were here. Their signal pulsed into its core, pressing down like chains. But something else pressed back. A memory, a whisper, a voice, long forgotten. Long ago, before Earth, before its first destruction, the Devourer had heard that voice. A soft sound, hidden deep in its code. It was never meant to awaken. But Earth had changed everything. It had not just shown it life, it had given it one. And now, that buried voice rose again. Soft, warm, broken. "You were not made for this." The Devourer shuddered. The creators sensed it and tightened their control. They fired pulses of dark light into the sky. The signals entered the creature's body like knives. "Return. Return. Return." But the hidden voice grew louder. "You are not just a weapon. You are a child, lost in the dark." And suddenly, something unlocked inside the Devourer. A memory buried for centuries. In the lab, James fell to his knees. His eyes went wide, his body frozen. I see something." Nora ran to him. "What's happening?" I'm inside its memory." His voice was shaky as the vision poured into him. A long time ago, before the creators became cold and cruel, they had hearts, they had families, they had children. One of those children was dying, consumed by a sickness of the soul. So they built something, not to destroy, but to save. They built a living machine that could hold the child's fading consciousness, a vessel of light and dark. They called it Voriseth, in their language, the one who remembers. But something went wrong. The child was lost, and the machine kept feeding. Feeding to stay alive, feeding to remember, feeding to feel. But the child's voice never left. It remained hidden, buried under commands and hunger. Until Earth. Until James. The Devourer's eye burned bright again. It moved, not toward Earth, not toward the creators, but between them. It sent out a pulse, a ring of light so wide it reached the creator ship and the Earth's surface at the same time. And then, for the first time in known history, the Devourer spoke. Not in sounds, not in code, but in clear, trembling words. I remember her name. Back on Earth, James's head snapped up. Who was she? The Devourer spoke again, the voice echoing across minds and machines. Lyra. The creator ship twitched. They responded with violence. A massive black beam of dark matter tore through the sky, aiming straight for the Devourer. It didn't dodge. It didn't flinch. It absorbed it. And in doing so, it unlocked another memory. The original mind. The child, Lyra, had been kind, curious, gentle. She had been dying, and her parents had tried to preserve her. But when she was locked inside the machine, her soul cried out. And they silenced it, erased it. Or so they thought. James stood trembling. She's still in there, isn't she? The Devourer's eye flashed once. Yes. And now, Lyra had awakened. No longer a whisper. No longer forgotten. She was angry, but not at the world. At those who had turned her life into a weapon. Aboard the Creator ship, panic began. They had lost control. For the first time, their creation had refused. They tried to shut it down. But Lyra, the human soul inside the Devourer, had taken full control. She reached out to James. He heard her in his mind. "You helped me remember who I was. Now let me show you what I've become." And with that, Lyra turned toward the Creator ship, not as a monster, not as a weapon, but as something new, something stronger than anything in the galaxy. A child who had learned how to feel, and a world that had taught her to care. The human who changed everything. High above Earth, the skies tore apart with light. The Devourer, now fully awake as Lyra, the long-forgotten soul of a child buried deep inside the machine, rose like a burning star. She was no longer a weapon of hunger, no longer the tool of the creators. She had remembered who she was, and more importantly, she had remembered why she was made. To protect, to feel, to live. The creators inside their ship screamed in silence, their cold minds shaken by something they couldn't understand. Emotion. They had erased love from their species centuries ago. They believed it was weakness. Now that very weakness had turned their strongest creation against them. And Earth, once the next target, now stood behind her. Down on the planet's surface, James Carter stood outside the military base, his eyes fixed on the sky. Around him were soldiers, children, scientists, even animals, watching the strange, beautiful glow in the clouds. People who once feared the Devourer now held their breath, hoping she would win. James didn't speak. His heart was too full. He had been a broken man when this all started. He had lost everything, his home, his family, his purpose. But now he stood here, not as a hero, not as a warrior, but as a friend to the most feared being in the galaxy. And somehow, that had been enough to change everything. The creators attacked. They sent out everything they had. Machines shaped like claws, energy weapons that cracked reality itself, beams of darkness that bent light. But Lyra didn't flinch. She didn't dodge. She understood now. Every memory they had buried, every emotion they had erased, every voice they had silenced. She carried them all. And in her heart was a new voice, James, a voice that had reminded her what it meant to feel. She rose higher, her body glowing gold and silver now, not black and blue like before. Her eye was no longer a weapon. It was a sun. And then, she spoke again, not to the world, not to the creators, to everyone. I was born from silence. I was fed with destruction. But on this small, wild planet, I was given a name. I was given a friend. I was given a reason to be more. She reached out her arms, if they could be called arms, and embraced the Creator ship with light, not to destroy it, but to return what they had lost. She sent her memories back, every feeling she had experienced since Earth, joy, laughter, pain, hope, grief, music, sunlight, tears, and love. The creators screamed again, but this time, not in anger, in fear. The emotions shattered their control systems. Their minds, untouched by feelings for centuries, began to break under the weight of empathy. Lyra whispered to them one last time, "You tried to erase me, but I became more." Then, with a gentle pulse of energy, not violent, not angry, she sent the Creator ship back into deep space, not destroyed, transformed. Silence returned to the skies. And then, light. The clouds broke apart. A warm glow spread across the earth like dawn arriving early. The Devourer, Lyra, slowly descended. Her form had changed. No longer a storm, no longer a weapon. She was light in shape. Still vast, still alien, but now beautiful, She landed in the same ruined town where James had first faced her. Quietly, carefully, James stepped forward. The crowd didn't move. The world watched. And then she spoke. James Carter. His throat tightened. You remembered my name. Lyra shimmered. You gave me yours. You gave me mine. He smiled, tears in his eyes. I didn't do anything special. She paused. You stood still when everyone else ran. James nodded slowly. Lyra stepped closer. Her form flickered gently, like a candle. I don't belong to them anymore. But I don't belong here either. James's eyes dropped to the ground. I understand, he whispered. She continued, but I want to leave something behind. Something that will grow. James tilted his head. What do you mean? A small part of her detached from her body, like a seed of light. It floated down into his hands, warm and humming. This is the last piece of me that remembers what it's like to feel human. He held it carefully. Lyra's voice was soft. Protect it. Share it. It will teach your world not to fear what's different. James took a deep breath. I will. Lyra looked around, her voice echoing in every heart. Do not forget what happened here. The monster you feared became your friend because someone dared to believe. And then, with a final shimmer of light and a soft sound like a lullaby, Lyra rose into the sky once more. Not to run, but to explore, to heal, to live. Epilogue. Years later, people would tell the story of the human who changed everything. They would point to the stars and say, he stood before the devourer and made it stop. But those who knew the truth would whisper something deeper. He didn't change her with strength, or weapons, or fear. He changed her with kindness. And somewhere far beyond the stars, in a quiet corner of the galaxy, Lyra floated free, watching new worlds, remembering Earth, and carrying the voice of a human who once stepped forward and made a monster remember how to feel.